Hello, hello. I'm gonna go ahead and take these off before we get started, just because of that right there. Me looking at you with two computer screens in my eyes. Oh, hey there. Now the interaction feels more connected. Okay, so this is gonna be for my YouTube audience only, because I posted a reel or a YouTube short about my take on the new Bungo Stray Dogs episode, and everybody on YouTube seemed to have enough critical thought to be able to understand it and relate to it, because, like, who has not enjoyed media that is bad? Like, Moist Critical, the media consumer of all time, has literally watches bad stuff for fun, because there's fun bad. There's fun bad. The accusation was never that Bungo Stray Dogs wasn't fun. However, a lot of people on TikTok have chosen to take a critique of their favorite media as an attack on their own taste, because that is where they've rooted their identity in. So just for my YouTube audience, I'm going to go ahead and kind of just go over this topic in more elaboration, because it's something I've thought about a lot, and I really want to make YouTube talk videos. So come with me and we'll be... Okay. So people have agreed, disagreed, middle ground, and I'm just going to go through almost every comment, as long as it's not repetitive. And the quality is trash because we are on my Alienware laptop, and I need to be able to read what I got going on here. So one of the top comments is bringing up, if you're not familiar with my original take on Bungo Stray Dogs, I went ahead and said the writing was trash, it's being dragged on, it's being milked, plot points are being forgotten, One Piece pacing, Stranger Things pacing, Poppy Playtime type writing, and that I enjoy it and I love it and I'm excited for more content, but it is still objectively bad. That was my original take. And on top of everything that I listed, someone added about Q, who I completely forgot about. Q was a character that showed up that was supposed to have this massive grudge with Dazai, that was such a nefarious little goblin that Chuya literally wanted to kill them. And that had such a powerful ability to literally bring Yokohama down to, like, the brink of destruction if it hadn't been inevitably cut off by Dazai and Chuya. So, what a powerful and seemingly really important character to bring into the show for 0.2 seconds and then to never bring back. And I think I have one theory. I have two theories, actually. They're very simple, they're very, like, negative, but understand that with the way that the show is going, there's a limited amount of optimism I can have. Number one is that the way that the fans handled seeing Dazai's interaction with Octogawa in the past really spoke volumes about their interpretation of child abuse when it comes to characters that they see themselves in, self-project onto, or find attractive enough that they don't care what they do. And that's not anything new, especially in real life. Horrifically, in real life, a lot of people love to excuse a lot of nefariously devious, horrendous, horrific behavior from real-life shooters, from real-life murderers, rapists, violent, just terrible, worst of the worst people. They will excuse all of that if they find them attractive or alternative or whatever. So I think that to protect the interpretation, and because let's be honest, and I'll admit it here too, the first thing I ever saw about Bungo Stray Dogs was Dazai and Chuya. That is how I learned about it. They are the faces of the show. They shouldn't be. Number one, they should not be. Atsushi should be. But because Atsushi doesn't take on any sort of, like, cunning, flirtatious, charismatic character, and instead is like I think, very fair depiction of someone that figures out they can turn into a tiger after literally being beaten and abused their whole life, they instead, the whole fandom caters to someone that they are like, hear me out. So they've become the face, and like all the merch is Dazai Chuya. There will be merch of other people, not as much of as much as I feel like would be justified for there being other characters, etc., etc., etc. So I feel like to protect people's interpretation and integrity of Dazai, the whole like plot, subplot, backstory, fact, canon of him having done nefarious torture and harm against Q that makes them like a literal bomb that you keep hidden away and you just throw out there when you need a bit of explosion. I think that I talk so much I lose my train of thought, so forgive me if my sentences aren't connecting. I feel like that is left out because of that reason, because there's only so much terrible you can show the face of your brand doing before people start being like. And then my second theory, which I think is way more plausible, just because I feel like Asagiri is not one to shy away from depicting characters negatively just because he cares about the impact that it'll have on the face of the manga or story or anime, is that I think he simply forgot about Q. I think he forgot about Q. I think that he was so invested in the new plot point that he had that he forgot key characters, and that's pretty much exactly what I think happened. Just another example of how the plot has become so messy, disconnected from what Bungo Stray Dogs has used to make a name for itself, and interpretable. Inexplainable. If you ask the Bungo Stray Dogs like fan the plot, they're not going to be able to like fully describe it to you with massive understanding. So someone brought that up, thought that was so valid. And then someone says, I think BSD is a great story. It comes together with time. The plot can suffer, but the characters make it very special. Beast is a great example of the story being decently well written. It's not a great plot, don't get me wrong. I think there are plot holes. So plot holes equal not a good story. If your story has so many holes that it's looking like Swiss cheese, it's looking like someone that's tossing a Swiss cheese on a newspaper to play like word game, to play blackout poetry. If your plot looks like blackout poetry, it's not a good plot. It's not a good story. A good story is something that, in my opinion, comes together collectively at the end. The only things that aren't known are things that the author willingly wants to be up to interpretation to further deepen the fandom's connection to the story. It needs to have good characters, good plots, good subplots. It doesn't have to follow like the typical like hero's journey format that we all learned about when we were kids. It has to border like line. The foundation of a good story is that it needs to make sense. If your fandom doesn't know what's going on, that is not good writing. And trying to say that good writing, good story, and good plot aren't all entangled together, and they're not always, but when you're missing so many parts that create a good piece of media, they typically tend to bleed into each other. So, for example, this was an argument a lot of people made on my TikTok, was that the characters make up for it. The characters have great writing, they're super engaging, etc., etc. A character can only be as good as the plot allows them to be. If the plot is terrible and there's plot holes and we're seeing characters develop in different ways with massive time cuts in between how they used to be and how they are now in their development, the character is not written well. If we are not understanding the characters' motives, the characters are not written well. Just because the characters might have a fun design and a fun fighting ability, and at one point we really did felt like we know them, it doesn't... I mean, everything has gone downhill as far as these new chapters and the next few seasons, and already the seasons that were out, like 4 and 5. Yikes. And you can have great characters that will not save your story. That does not make a story good. It is not the saving grace. I don't even think the characters are good anymore because the writer is skipping so much of the plot and guess what you need for a plot to be relevant? Characters. So guess what you're skipping over is you're skipping over the plot. You're skipping over characters. And then someone brought it up again, saying his strong suit is writing characters. And because of that, he doesn't focus on high stakes. He shifted the stories, focusing on the characters and the detective mafia stuff to the plot and fights, and making Bungo Stray Dogs this big thing. He raised the stakes too high and constantly teased payoff only just to raise them again, to the point that I just wanted the arc to end. I felt like that was super, super valid. The progression of intensity and out of this worldness that the plot has taken without ever having resolved any of the major issues was really took you for a whirl there, gave you whiplash for real. I would say, unfortunately, I don't think any of the characters have as good writing as they have potential to have. And I don't mean that as an insult in any way. I myself am a writer. And a lot of the times I'm going back and changing things and revamping and adding things on to characters and story and plot. So it's something I feel like Bungo Stray Dogs just does not do well. And that doesn't mean that because you relate to them that they have good writing. I know a lot of people, what I see, especially a lot of people do, is this good writing that they, golly, bruh. It's that, I think that the reason a lot of people swear of the amazingness of these characters, and they did have potential. They were awesome up until season 3. I will stand by that. Is because they subconsciously consider such normalized headcanons to be canon that they have established this fan-made version of the characters in the actual series, and thus are like, they're great. What you are seeing is non-confirmed output of potential that these characters have. It is not canon. A lot of stuff I see people talk about is not canon, and I'm not saying you can't make headcanons. Headcanons are great, but when you use them to try to explain, Saturn. When you use them to try to explain away bad writing, it's time to take a step back and take a breather. I'm saying this as someone who is headcanon galore right here. The amount of alternative universes I've made, the amount of character developing complex scenarios that I have created for characters to go through things they've never gone through so that they can change their brainwaves and the way that they think and the way that they view life and 99% of the time it is a reflection of my own experiences and thought process. I think I am qualified to say a lot of people will subconsciously project their idea, non-canon idea, onto a canon character, and because of that, blur the lines between their own headcanons and what is truly canon. I think I'm just repeating myself. I hope you guys like hearing me up, because I sure love doing it. And then this is my number one thing I hate seeing in fandoms. And this just goes back to people rooting their identities in fictional media and nowhere else, and taking any critique of it as personal. And this is the thing I hate the most. Are you ready? It's not good enough. Then don't read it. So I shouldn't be allowed to enjoy a piece of media and consume it because I have the critical thinking skills to be able to critique things that aren't perfect about it? In what world does that make any sense? So many people that have made games, stories, music, art, any form of media that usually put out the first game, the second game, or the first, installment in a media series, in a media anything, usually take people who write books, hand it to beta readers and say, tell me what's wrong with it. Tell me things that pulled you out of the story, that made it unenjoyable, because a critique is not personal to the people that enjoy it and to the person that created it. It is an objective stance and analysis of things that are wrong. This whole, if you don't like it, just don't interact, is so simple-minded and so dismissive of valid critiques. And I don't think it's because these people are like, you know, have any malicious intent towards anyone that has opinions different than them. I think that it but especially with kin culture being a thing, I think it is because people see themselves in these forms of media. They see themselves in the characters in these media, and they root their identities within that. And so hyperfixations come about. And when you have absolutely nothing else that you interact with, and nothing else that you see yourself in, besides other forms of media like anime, you take any critique as a critique towards yourself. I need you to no one on this planet Earth never better say those words again, unless it is, no one ever say those words again, because it's making me mad. Media exists for people to interpret, and if you love it and you think it's good, that's great. I don't. I love it. I think it's trash. I will eat it like a pig with its slop, like a raccoon with its trash, bro. Like a mosquito with its blood, bro. I will love it for forever. It sucks. I say this as someone who on Letterboxd, I have 2 favorite movies on there that show up when you go to my profile. Puss in Boots: Last Wish, which is so valid. That was a perfect movie. I'm not talking about that. And second, and actually in front of that, Five Nights at Freddy's movie. That is what I have rated the top movie of all time. And I'm able to see and interpret and critique its major shortcomings as a film. Oh, Saturn. And I can still enjoy it. And I feel like even enjoying it will allow you to be able to make more critiques because you want to see it go in a good direction. I don't understand what this is with people thinking that if you enjoy something, you're not allowed to critique it, and then if you're going to critique it, you just shouldn't consume it at all. That is stupid. That is a stupid thought process, and I need everyone to lock in and change that. Yeah, that I hate seeing that in fan culture. And I hate even seeing it more from creators, which I don't usually do as much, because it is such a negligence of accountability and responsibility for something that you created. Okay. And another one of my biggest things is that the whole anime onlys thing, the whole we don't even read our own manga trend, I hate that. Let me put it into perspective. Let me put it into perspective right now. I'm doing it right now. Y'all better be ready, dude. Because I hate this. This is like my second least favorite fandom thing to ever have existed outside of if you don't like it, just don't. Okay. Look at this. What is this? 2 plus 2. You said 4, right? Now, if I show you this that you did not have access to before, are you stupid for thinking it was 4? Imagine you literally never see this. You do not have the time to be able, or the resources to be able, bro, cover it, dude. To be able to sit down and get other parts of the media that aren't in the readily accessible format that it already is in. You are not stupid for thinking 2 plus 2 plus 2 is 4 if I covered one of the 2s. If you did not have all of the information to be able to make a complete, whole correct answer to the equation. When people who only watch the anime make an interpretation off of the anime, that's all they've seen. That is 1,000,000% valid. That is 100% valid. Let me calm down. The reason that I bring this up, and that's a topic for a whole other day. Dude, I feel like my hair looks so good. The reason I bring this up is because one of the arguments that I saw a lot in my TikTok was, oh, a lot of the plot points, the plot holes were explained in 55 minutes. Like, just read 55 minutes. When I wanted to read Beast, I had to read an off-brand fan translated by Google Translate bootleg on Wattpad. Not everyone has the money to buy the light novel. Some people, and the fandom is full of mostly teenagers, because I was a teenager when I started consuming it. If they are watching it, they are pirating it, and pirating anime is a lot easier than pirating a light novel of an anime. And on top of all of that, if they are not pirating the anime, they are probably watching it on a subscription that their parents pay for. Not saying that's everyone's case, but I am saying that also the reason anime is so popular, and manga's popular too, but understand that not everyone is able, unfortunately, not everyone has the attention span or the capability to pick up a book and read. You are not considering people who just don't have access to that sort of media. So if your fan, and mind you, here is how it goes in terms of accessibility. Anime, here's my finger, anime, manga, and again, if you've only seen the anime, your interpretation of everything you saw is 1,000,000% valid. I don't care if people are like, it's different in the manga. It's different in the manga. That's cool. My interpretation of the only information I was presented with is still 1,000,000% valid. Anime, manga, light novel. That's not even all of the time. Let's say you do have money for it, and you don't want to order online. And especially with this strike coming up on March 7th, you don't want to stimulate the economy. Let's say that you go to Barnes & Noble and you're going to go buy this light novel. Do you know how many times I've seen 55 minutes next to all the Bungo Stray Dog light novels? I can tell you it's about 0 times, and I've been consuming the anime since like 2021. So I don't know what to tell you guys about that. I need you to do, it's not as simple. It's easier said than done, right? And if you have it for free, if you accessed it and you got it so easily, then share it. If your fandom needs to go find an obscure light novel that's nowhere mentioned in the regular plot, in the manga or in the anime, and it is not a part of the main story, yet it somehow explains away all of the issues in your main story, there is a massive problem with what you choose to show in your original plot. I feel like that's very self-explanatory. It's like spin-offs and side plots should not be what the entire fandom needs in order to understand my baby, the whole of your plot. I vaguely remember 55 minutes, island explode, they turn back time. Spoilers, except not really, because I know some other things I'm just not going to say for anyone that would love to read it. Nowhere can I remember the reason, because I did word it a little weird in my TikTok video. The reason that Fyodor was ever captured by the Port Mafia and killed Ace, we know the reason why. He wanted information on, specifically, I think he said Mori and the Port Mafia members and their abilities. We know why. What we do not know is why he needed that. And I do not remember that ever coming up in 55 minutes, because as far as I was concerned, the main girl, she's stepping on my keyboard. The main character of that was ability user, time person, and Atsushi. Atsushi, I think, was the main character in that, and I really don't recall Fyodor being a part of the equation. And I'm probably wrong, I haven't read it in a very long time. But for the people that I have seen online who were so passionate about the series once, not bring that up in any sort of way and complain about the same things is telling me that it is probably not in there as elaborative or, stop stepping on my keyboard, or as explicit as it needs to be. And again, a side novel that's not even a part of your manga, that's not even a part of your anime, or barely promoted or mentioned within either of those two things that I just mentioned, that should not be where the entire explanation for your villain's motive needs to be at all. I think that if that's true and that's exactly where it is, then that is a bad decision. So, and I know my opinion trumps all and you guys care so much. I'm just kidding. Obviously. But that is my personal opinion, and I know I'm not the only one that has it. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Asagiri has forgotten about the Mafia transfer. This has been my favorite topic to yell about on TikTok for the longest time because it makes me so mad. Because the fandom wants to insist that the writing is so perfect, it is so great, it's beautiful, gorgeous, nothing wrong with it, they like to post things that are in complete denial of the fact that it is not good. And one of those, and this is, I think, one of, like, the worst, sorry, I leaned back, so, one of the worst additions that TikTok has ever made is this new text post thing where there is nothing but a generative blank page behind it with like a couple details and just someone's hot take, which is usually rage bait or engagement bait. And the amount of times, even before that I have seen people posting me like, who do you guys think is going to get transferred to the Port Mafia? I do not think that's going to happen. I have never thought that was going to happen. I've been saying for like years that the only reason I think that was ever brought up was so that we could see Yoshino's backstory. Instead of it, I think there's better ways, obviously, that could have been brought up, because Mori pulled up and he was like, what's up? I'm here to help y'all. There could have bro wouldn't do it without, like, some sort of deal. I feel like you could use a deal that's not going to be entirely forgotten and not brought back up in order to do this, though. And she could have been like, oh, I hate this guy. Get him out of my face. And everyone's like, oh, why she hate him, bruh? And then we learn. That could have been done. I really don't know what else to say. There are alternatives. I'm not the writer of the show. I don't have all of the information, so obviously I cannot come up with specifics. And maybe I will be proven wrong. Maybe this will be brought back up. Maybe part 2 will be in, like, the Mafia transfer. But I really don't see the use Mori would have for someone that is working for him against their will and has animosity against him because of that, and has predated animosity because his factions continuously attack their agency for no reason until they came to a truce in season 2, and then all of that just decided to stop. Like, the Black Lizard was nefarious for continuing to attack them. I don't see why he would want anyone like that working for him, because it would be such a hassle to get them to be loyal to you, loyal to the Port Mafia, loyal to their cause. And if you're like, oh, well, if they don't, then he can threaten this, he can threaten that. Yes, but that is so tedious when you don't need to do that. And he would never 1,000,000% be able to trust anybody that he transferred from the agency to the Port Mafia, ever. And genuinely, what is the point with working with someone like that? And it make no sense at all. At all. I think it has a potential to be a good plot. I think back when I thought it would really happen, everyone, like, this is, again, kind of just my take on the lack of media literacy from Bungo Stray Dogs fans, is that they want to see what will cause the most drama as opposed to what will make the most sense. What will invoke the most emotion in them, which is valid, as opposed to what is going to be logical. I think if Mori would take anyone from the agency, it would be Tachihara, who has already proved that he's, like, low-key nefarious, and he almost killed Mori, let's not forget. I know Mori, there was no way he just happened not to hear about that after season 3. And I think either him or Atsushi, and I think Atsushi, and I don't know if this will be brought back up because I don't know if Asagiri's forgotten or not. I think Atsushi's ability was coveted for so long, and it is a really powerful ability, and he's already proven that he can work really well alongside Octogawa, and I think it would make the most sense because Mori would see the potential that Shuya and Dazai had before Dazai left the Port Mafia, and they still have that potential. They still work really well together. And Atsushi, I think, would probably cause the least amount of issues over working for the Port Mafia. Because at the end of the day, whatever Galinda said in Wicked, applies to the Armed Detective Agency. Wait, not in Wicked. Sorry, take that back. I think whatever the witch in Into the Woods said about all of the other characters during the last midnight, where she's like, you're so nice. You're not good. You're not bad. You're just nice. I think that the gray morals of the detective agency have been brought up not as much as I would like them to be by the fandom, because they're all busy arguing about who's good and who's not, because they project themselves onto those characters, and whether or not they're good is a reflection of whether or not the fandom is good. Golly, I really say a whole lot and then completely forget what I was talking about. The agency is not perfect, by no means, and for Atsushi having been there for the least amount of time, I feel like he'd be like the optimal choice. And that's if that ever happens, because I really don't think it will. It might, it literally might, but it will not be. I might absolutely eat my words. But again, I don't have that extra 2, so how am I supposed to know that 2 + 2 is 6 if I don't see the 2 + 2 + 2? It will not be Dazai. That makes absolutely 0 sense. There is no reason. And he's already proven he can leave and go under the radar. He has already proven that he is not above fucking shit up when he leaves. Like, he also, as an older man, he's not, like, crazy old. And it's crazy to literally think, bruh, like, when I was starting this, all of these people were literally so old to me. And now I'm, like, 20, and I'm like, wait, something's going on. What do you mean he's the same age as my sister, bro? What do you mean? It's really crazy. I do love that about media, seeing time pass and myself in retrospect to other characters. I think I wasn't the whole reason of Mori doing all that he did to get Dazai to leave anyway. Was he not low Kirk? Was he not no Kirkuinly, like, I kind of don't want this kid near me, dog. He is becoming more devious and nefarious by the second. I'm fearing for my life a little bit. Was that not a thing? That might be headcanons projecting onto canon. I can't remember. It's been a second since I watched the show, and I might have to rewatch it so I can give more valid takes. I don't think Mori would want someone so similar to him, who's already been in the Mafia, had personal issues with him, shown so much hatred for him, come back and work for him against his will, and it would not end well. And on top of all of that, he's, like, very smart and cunning. You really want someone like, this is what I just don't get it. Why would you want someone who hates you, who will not ever, especially Dazai, out of everyone, could not ever be conditioned to be loyal to Mori or the Port Mafia ever again? Because, mind you, he really wasn't ever loyal to Mori to begin with when he worked there the first time. I don't think it would make any sense to have someone like that work for you. So I don't think it would be Dazai. I know y'all would love to see him spiral. He would not spiral. He has proven that he can leave the Port Mafia untraced. He's done it before. He will do it again. And what's Mori gonna do? Go to the agency, be like, no, I need another one. I lost the last one. No, babe, we had our deal. You're good. Get out. It's not gonna be Dazai. Y'all want the drama so bad. It's not going to be Kanekita, because I feel like everyone's like, I want to see his ideals shatter. His ideals are so strong that he would just be more of a problem to assimilate into the Port Mafia, like I'd mentioned before. Kenji's super strong. The Port Mafia has not witnessed, like, the person that witnessed his total complete potential was Techo from the Hunting Dogs, not anyone from the Port Mafia. I don't think that would make sense. And I don't think that his style of handling conflict would ever be able to assimilate to the sort of aggression that you need when you're in a mafia. Who else is there? Naomi doesn't have an ability. Who else is there? He can't take Yoshino, which is such, like, a thing. I know that he wants to be like, haha, I'm gonna mess with your emotions and you're gonna be sad and depressed. He can lie all he wants and say Fukuzawa specifically said he could take Yoshino. that is her father figure. She's not stupid enough to believe that after given a few days to process that. And saying it don't make it so, bud. You still cannot walk into the agency and be like, give me Yoshino. Because they're going to look at you and be like, no. Fuck. Look at this guy. So I really think, I don't know. I thought that was weird to include. I get that. I guess we're just trying to show that Mori likes to piss people off. I feel like we got that enough before, but whatever. So it cannot be her. Rampo's skill set is not... It's as valuable as it is because he's working for a detective agency. And I feel like with the size of the Port Mafia, they do not need to invest within a single individual from another organization that is one of the originals of that organization that would hold animosity towards the leader of the Port Mafia and the Port Mafia just because of how smart he is and how quick he can come to conclusions that the Port Mafia can obtain by the millions of thousands of hundreds of resources that they already have. I don't think that makes any sense, and it just doesn't need to be done. As far as, like, smarts, clever, whatever, I think Mori has that just fine. He and Dazai are supposed to be similar, and I know that he's not considered on the level of Dazai, Fyodor, and Rampo. But again, when you have all the resources in the world, it's hard to not eventually come to the conclusion that they were going to come to just a little bit slower. I feel like intelligence is not something that they're fiending for in the Port Mafia. Ugh, I love talking about that, bruh. Golly. And someone said it feels like the new chapters didn't need to happen. That's true. Don't have much elaboration on that. I'ma be honest, plot is so garbage, I don't care about it, I only care about the characters. That's true, and here we see someone being like, I only care about the characters, without trying to say that they are written so well that it makes up for a terrible plot. Babe, I love the characters. If the depth that the characters have been given by the creator and how complex their writing is determines whether or not someone should like their character, then we're all cooked, and especially me because my favorite character is Mori Ogai, and he has maybe like 2 seconds of screen time. And projected headcanons from me reading Vita Sexualis and gone, so I think we just need, like, if everyone could just have that mindset, the story's trash, we just like the characters we like, it simply is what it is. The world would be a better place. Someone said Fyodor's fault, I don't care. Fyodor had a lot of haters. I was very surprised, because usually people are like, ooh, hot guy, that's all I care about. Glad to see that some people have made an exception, and I hope it's not for racist reasons. But I think it's just because, like, and there's racist people everywhere. There's going to be racist people in Mungo Stray Dogs fandom. But I think it's just because of how many of our favorite characters that he slimed, but then of course didn't slime because none of it was real to begin with. There's several authors that haven't been referenced yet. Mary Shelley, people in Stormbringer. And someone was like, someone in response to that, very valid take, because I understand that we want to world build and bring up other characters, but for it to be world building and not just fun fact trivia, you have to build the world around and into those characters, and these characters are brought up once and never of any importance again. It can be like a little fun fact, but when it's characters that have been essential to the plot, such as Q and Agatha Christie, what do you mean you're in control of a nuke and you're going to send it to blow up Yokohama, and then we're never going to hear from you again? What is going on? Where are y'all at? Where are y'all at when reality and is literally being torn apart and demigods are being brought down from the sky, and there's a terrorist attack that threatens the entire race of ability users, which Agatha Christie is supposed to be? I think he forgot about her. And I'm going to talk about women in Bungo Stray Dogs in another episode of me yapping, because this is already getting really long. It's because I love to talk. Can you tell? Season 3, Fyodor's been on my mind too. The whole thing ended with him snatching a list of the Port Mafia members and their abilities, which would explain Chuyu's appearance in Mersault. piss poor explanation because they didn't interact once, but whatever. Let us also not forget that that was not real. He did not use any of that knowledge to obtain Chuya in any way because he never truly obtained Chuya. That was fake. It was a disguise for those who haven't seen it. I notice characters tend to just know each other now. They don't meet. Why the hell would Akutagawa know or care who Fyodor is? That is a valid point, and it's something that is like the way it is in Stranger Things. People know things that they should not have known, know people they shouldn't have known, and motives that they shouldn't have known. The Port Mafia and the detective agency have been in shambles for a hot minute. There is a severe lack of communication between everybody because reality is getting torn apart. Timelines are getting mushed together and fucked up. And it's gonna, it happened off screen. I'm sure because I see Mori's alive, Chuya was never truly a vampire. Akutagawa was. And I know he knows who Fyodor is, but how does he literally know? Like, on Everything I Love, he did not come out of vampire hypnosis with already, like, an earbud in his ear. And Mori being like, okay, guys, listen up. We need to use teamwork to defeat Fyodor. He's the enemy. He's the one that caused all this. Akutagawa just seems to know that. Unless he has access to all of his memories from being a vampire. And even then, Fyodor was in Mersalt the whole time. He should not know. And, you know, I might be wrong. Again, they might release some jaw-dropping truth in this last chapter of part 1 that just makes me eat all my words. I hope that they do. Low-key, I feel like BSD has bad writing but makes up for it with amazing character. I've already touched on that. Someone brought up Q again. The airport arc should have just ended with Fukuchi's first death, and the way we barely had any elaboration on what happened with the book and the rewriting of the framing of the detective agency is so crazy to me because that was the main plot of this arc. Yes, bro. Again, with the absurdity of the plot, which I haven't brought up in this video yet, I don't think, but I absolutely did in my little reel. The entire conflict was caused because somebody had a book and was like writing fan fiction and making it a reality. And I think that was used the same way as It Was All a Dream cop-out theory was used for Five Nights at Freddy's as a whole. When you introduce something like that, you need to be very strategic with how you use reality bending. Instead, when you want to claim that your story has a meaningful impact and good writing as a homage to people who are not good at living, you need to use it very strategically and you need to use it good. Creating something that is completely outside of the realm of Bungo Stray Dogs and is new, and instantly deciding it has this power that all the fandom should explain to get rid of any plot holes or writing issues in your story. Bad. I think bad. I start a sentence and I never can remember how I start it, and I just start talking, so that book pissed me off. I think I saw it for what it was at the very beginning, because it's a reality bending book. If you have some sort of reality bending anything in your thing, or any sort of dream or psychosis in any of your characters in your story, you can be like, it just wasn't real. It was because of the book. It was because of the book. And that book, has been talked about for so long that for it to come into play one time, to frame the agency, and then being like, this is what I'm going to do in order to I'm gonna use the book to obtain something else because it's not powerful enough for me. That ended up being why they were in the airport in the first place. Fukuchi wanted that concept of an ability that was locked away. That's new. Never heard of that. You would think it's just new stuff. It's what's it called? Retconning? What's going on here, man? All that to say, I think the book is dumb. I had something I was gonna say. We'll see if I remember it later. Oh, I do know what I was going to say. That book is powerful enough on its own. Do you, and I know this, do you know what Dazai did when he got a hold of that book? We got Bungo Stray Dogs Beast. Tens upon hundreds upon thousands of different realities he created to have Oda alive. So clearly it can create different realities for you to live in. Go away. Go live in your abilityless, warless world. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but it makes no sense that these characters who have apparently such a strong concept of the weapon of their choice would not use them to their full potential and instead go against their initial motive of never wanting to cause harm to anyone ever again and wanting no one to feel the pains of war, of violence, of death, of murder. I don't think someone that would believe all of that and that being their motive, I don't think they would ignore a power they readily have to make that their reality in order to get something that's a little stronger. And that ended up like not mattering at all. And it turned into like demigods and gods flying down from the sky. And like I could like this is what I'm saying. If I cannot explain to you, it's not good. The dead guy, Fukuchi, who's not actually dead, spoilers, comes back, but it's not him. I guess it's a demigod that kind of looks like him. I don't remember what happened to him. He disappeared and got cooked real fast, and then a bunch of heads came down that looked like that demigod that looked like Fukuchi's face came down and started fighting. And also Atsushi went into like the 8th dimensional realm where no one was ever dead. They were just put into like an infinity loop of time. There was a girl there. Don't know what happened to her. Don't know what her importance was, what her backstory was, which is usually, again, women in Bungo Stray Dogs. So I will be making a video about that. Yeah. I love BSD. I'm jumping with joy every time a new chapter of media gets released, but I've been zoning out for the last 20 chapters. That's facts. Frodo should have died in the helicopter crash. Facts. Just, it really felt like Asagiri had a limit that he needed to reach in order to end the arc, so he just kept on killing Fyodor over and over and over and making it never actually matter until he finally could meet the chapter quota that he had. That's what it felt like. And usually people complain about stuff getting cut out of the anime. I'm so excited for that to get cut out of the anime. People theorizing about why Fyodor stole the files when he was kidnapped by Ace. If you have to theorize about a key plot point into understanding the motive of the main villain, then it's not very goodly written. That's not a word, but... And then this is one of the last things I'll touch on, just because the video is getting really long, is people saying that the arc just felt dragged out because it was a monthly chapter thing. I went like multiple months without chapter updates from this man. I've been keeping up since 2021. None of those arcs felt as prolonged as this. And it's because they weren't being put out to reach a quota. They were being put out because he had an active idea of how he was going to keep the story going. I would rather have had that many chapters of Fyodor dying. I would rather have had that amount of aftermath instead, because I know the aftermath is just not going to be elaborated on enough in this last chapter. I don't think that makes any sense. If you need one character's death to take 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 6, 7 chapters, you're going to need more than that to establish the aftermath for all of your main characters, because he brought everybody that died back, except for like Tachihara, I think. And Fukuchi died a second time, and it was for real. I wouldn't be surprised if they showed him in the hospital and they were like, just kidding, he was never dead. Okay. And then it's just more people theorizing about why he did it. You shouldn't have to theorize about key main plot points. This is what everyone's issue ended up being with Five Nights at Freddy's, is almost everything is speculation. Almost everything about that 20 million game book movie series is speculation now. That sucks. That's not a good story. It's generational, and it was original when it came out, and that's why it stuck so hard. Saying that as someone whose cat name is Freddy Fazbear. One of my cat's names is Freddy Fazbear. What a brilliant take here. Genuinely, I think one of the biggest problems that dragged the arc out is Asagiri refused to, utilize his female characters for, 2 years straight of that arc. None of them got to do anything substantial, Mind you, Lucy has a whole, like, second dimension. I'm gonna screenshot that. And I'm gonna save it for when I talk about Bungo Stray Dogs' attempt at portraying women and the fandom's treatment of those women in comparison with how they treat the men, because it makes me very mad. A lot of people talking about they left the fandom, period. I don't know why this fandom is so bad at criticizing BSD's writing. If there were any other fandom like Jujutsu Kaisen, they'd rip Bungo Stray Dogs to shreds. Again, it's just like, and this is like a typical thing. People like something, they're going to hate when they hear you critique it because they cannot fathom liking it and finding flaws in it at the same time. Oh, and also there's like this like sheep syndrome. I made that up right now. That's not what it's called. But people will, I think I've seen a comment on TikTok that summed it up best. Someone commented, said, "I'm the first comment here. Now I have to come up with my own opinion." People are just going to follow what they see, even if they initially thought something different, even if not presented with a substantial amount of evidence, because they are just there to agree with everyone else, which is insane, y'all. Please. Please. And someone's trying to be like, Fyodor's purpose in killing Ace was to obtain the list Ace had with all the Port Mafia's abilities, information, especially Mori's, for the cannibalism plan. What would, like, I'm really not understanding. Is it because Fyodor wanted to make sure that Mori didn't have an ability that was gonna prevent him from stabbing him? Because guess what's gonna happen if I can't get in arm's reach of you and you're caught off guard still? I'm putting the poison in a blicky on a bullet and you're getting shot. You can dodge that. I have 6 guys. So I'm like, there's ways you can strategize getting around not knowing someone's ability. If the priority is Fyodor's safety, then he can try over and over and over with someone that is not him. I promise he does not value people enough to not view them as expendable. If Ivan said anything about that, if Pushkin said anything about that. I don't think it also took a genius to realize, to go back through history, because mind you, when we first meet Mori, he has, golly, where's my hand? A little not a black and white, but a non-colored photo of him and Elise. I promise it wouldn't take, and he was an underground doctor for a while, right? And Fyodor's supposed to be this great evil guy. I promise it would not take that much brain power to understand that the never aging little girl he always has with him is not a real person. I feel like that's, maybe it's just because I've seen it. Obviously, I don't know. But Fyodor is supposed to be 1,000,000 times smarter than me, have access to 1,000,000 times more resources than me, and I'm watching the anime through the lens of a newbie in the Armed Detective Agency. I feel like it would not have taken all of that for Fyodor to, and again, he wanted a list of the entire mafia. He didn't ever make an effort to get a list of the Armed Detective Agency. And I don't think Fukuzawa was going around doing this about his ability all the time. I mean, maybe it would have been easier to find out about his, but him and Mori were equal targets that Fyodor needed to hit both of for his plan to work, and he only wanted to investigate one. And again, he proved pretty well that he can work around not being able to get within close range of someone, so I really don't know. Like, all he literally had to do was just nick Mori a little bit with that poison. A little bit. He could have had a kid and given him $5 and be like, "Kid, throw this rock at that man right there." "Oh, my fault, mister." "My fault." The kid might get killed, but what does Fyodor care? Let's be serious. And would Mori really genuinely think that? Can you sense a malicious intent that is not there because that child was just paid $5 $5 to skip a stone on the street, dude? Like, there are ways. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe that wouldn't work. But I feel like that would be like just there are ways. There are ways that make sense, and this doesn't make sense. Let's ignore. He did not need that list to be able to make that plan happen. He did not. I promise you, he did not. End of story. Excuse me. And also, like, let's bring up that unless it was completely on purpose, the whole thing is Akutagawa Atsushi, Chuya Dazai, Mori Fukuzawa. Did we not get flashbacks? And maybe, again, like, they're different now because they're a million years old and about to crumble to the ground as dinosaurs. I'm just kidding. It's crazy to think that my parents are older than them. Wow. He was not, like, that's the whole thing is, except for Atsushi and Akutagawa, which this is, like, very different. They diverge a lot from Sokoku and, like, the old people. One of them is smart, and then one of them is brawn. And I'm not saying Fukuzawa's not smart. I'm not saying Chuya's not smart. These are very intelligent people because to be able to truly partner with someone and understand their attacks, their offense, their defense, and how you can best incorporate your own skills to work well with theirs takes a lot of smarts. But that's, like, we've actively seen Mori, like, get beat up, like, a lot. It looks like he's a very easy target, and that was before he was the Port Mafia boss, and he did say he was doing extra training, so maybe I don't, maybe it's different now. I just feel like if, like, he's not the hardest guy to, like, land a blow on. I obviously could not. I'm not saying that I could. I just feel like there are more difficult people. I mean, Fyodor got one over on Dazai and shot him. And Dazai's supposed to be way smarter than Mori. He's supposed to be on par with Fyodor. He's supposed to be on par with Rampo. So you're telling me he can get Dazai, but he can't get Mori. Alright. Whatever. Whatever. This stuff was all implied in the manga and light novels. If your stuff is only implied in the main sources of media, and if you have to, it wasn't implied. I read the manga, by the way. That's a fat lie. You're making it up because you already have made connections in your head to fill in the plot holes uncanonically as to why the story doesn't work. And you're like, oh, it was implied. You made a theory and you found evidence that does not make it 100% confirmed until the creator confirms it. Just like nothing I'm saying is 100% confirmed. He could come around and release, like, a long chapter, next chapter, and be like, and genuinely connect the pieces and it be the most beautiful story, best written story ever. He could do that, and that would make me completely wrong. So what? That means that the story was good. I'm not gonna start turning around and being like, oh, I was so stupid, like it was always there. Just like, I feel like people need to be more comfortable with being wrong, because I'm probably going to end up being wrong about a lot of things, because I think in order to drag Bungo Stray Dogs onto a part 2, he's going to have to bring back a lot of stuff he forgot. He might have a whole list of things that he's waiting to bring back up. That might be it. So, I might be wrong, and that's totally fine. Okay, so this person, I don't know what's wrong with their keyboard. I guess they don't have access to the U, to the Y. So I said, yet you're involved with the fandom and know what's happening. If you think it's so horrible, then why do you care? Just drop it. Somebody once said that if you argue with a fool, there are two fools, so I'm not going to reply to that. The obvious reason that I am interacting with it is because I enjoy it, and I think it's horrible. So horrible, because I'm able to acknowledge the flaws in it that make it that way, while still enjoying it. You know what was bad? Five Nights at Freddy's. I loved it. What else was bad? The Last of Us was terrible, that movie. Loved it. I ate it up. What you talking about? There's a lot of terrible things out there that I will enjoy. I'm not going to sit there and pretend that means it's good. What's wrong with y'all, man? I know people joke about it, last comment. I know people joke about it, but the fact Bungo Stray Dogs fans genuinely struggled to explain the plot is already telling. I feel like that's a really good way to end it. Everyone wanted to make jokes about not being able to explain what happened in Bungo Stray Dogs, Dead Apple, the movie. I felt like I could explain it pretty good. This one guy, I can't explain his ability the best. This one guy has the ability to put a layer of smoke, spoilers, if you don't know, over, if you haven't watched it, the entire Yokohama metropolitan, I don't know if that's correct word, I just used that right now because it sounded good, area, strip everybody of their abilities, make them fight them, and if they lose and die, he gets that ability as a part of his collection, and his main goal is to obtain Atsushi's ability. So the entire time we are witnessing like the main characters, the main cast that we all know and love, we are witnessing them fight their own abilities, and in order to stop this and prevent other ability users who are not as well versed in fighting from losing their lives to their own abilities, they have to kill Shibusawa. And that is something that Atsushi is working for as he continues to lose companions along the way, like Kyoken Kunikita. That is something Akutagawa is working for, and I felt like the movie really did him justice as far as his character development, because Dazai's whole thing was like, you're trash, cuh, you can't even beat me, and I don't even have an ability, and you can't even use your ability, and you suck. And Akutagawa was not only stripped of his ability, but he had to fight her. And he won, and I think that was amazing. I'm glad that they included that. We got kind of more of an insight of the government's involvement in Yokohama. I thought it was cool because as far as I know, we don't get a whole lot of Ongo again until Dead Apple, after learning like the backstory of it all. Thought that was really cool. I thought showing Chuya's strength without Chuya having access to his ability was great. And I think bringing up once more Chuya's ability and just the immense strength of it was amazing. Unfortunately, people will dumb that down because all they care about is pushing Chuya and Dazai into straight het relationship stereotypes so that they can continue to fetishize male ships instead of appreciating the content for what it is. Dead Apple I loved it, me personally. And then Atsushi eventually goes to fight Shibusawa. He learns that the reason Shibusawa wants his ability is because back when he was getting nefariously beat up every day in the orphanage, they allowed Shibusawa to experiment on him, nearly kill him, and it ended up killing Shibusawa in turn, and Fyodor used the remnants of his corpse and some like rule about his ability in order to bring him back to life. I thought it was insanely cool, and I wish it was elaborated on, as I do all things in this fandom, that Fyodor and his ability did not fight. And I don't know if it's because it's, crime and punishment. They're literally like the same thing. So when they're split into two, you just get that one whole with two parts instead of it being one whole part. So I thought that was cool. I would love elaboration on that. I felt like the plot was not hard to describe. Guy want ability. Guy use his ability to strip everybody of their ability and hope it kills them so that he can get their ability in turn. And Atsushi beat him after Chuya beat him. Wait, Atsushi did beat him. He literally, fought him. And again, back to the fandom not being able to really appreciate I thought Dead Apple was great. I'm sorry. The only issue that I have a problem with is, again, that we never really learn why people covet Atsushi's ability so much. At the time, I assumed that it was going to be elaborated on later. It really never was. We got a little glimpse that it was something special when he cut through space and time. That's new. But, that was my only discrepancy. I thought the way that they handled all the characters was great. I loved seeing Fukuzawa and Mori interact. I loved seeing Akutagawa defeating his own ability. How many of y'all could defeat Rashomon? How many of y'all? With not even the human brain attached, all they're just like, I'm just gonna kill, that's it. I don't have any logic. I don't need you alive. That was awesome. I liked seeing that the Armed Detective Agency is always armed. That was cool. You guys are like, they're an armed detective agency. We've yet to see a Blicky or so. And Blicky there was. So that was awesome. I liked that. We got I felt like this was really when Atsushi connected and came to terms with his ability and who he was in his past. And people want to dog on it and be like, the anime didn't show his trauma well enough. The anime did. Every, traumatic scene that was in the manga was mostly shown in Dead Apple. I thought it was great. I thought, maybe whatever. Maybe I'm a stupid little goober and I don't know anything. But people want to joke about that they can't explain that. Babe, explain the entire arc after season 4 to me. It goes, reality book used to frame our detective agency for terrorism. Traitor in the Port Mafia who's working for the hunting dogs because the book made him believe that the agency could actually be terrorists, and then he's like, wait, no, that doesn't make any sense. I'm gonna double trade her back for the Port Mafia against the hunting dogs. Once you get to Fukuchi's sword cuts through space and time, and he left a Fortnite spray paint emo on a wall so that he knew exactly where he was going to be attacked from, and he knew exactly how to handle the situation. He left that self for him, and he left that symbol for him in another universe. That really cut it off for me. I can handle reality bending books because they have rules and limits. When you introduce something that's like, no, and then you're going to make his ability be to enhance the, like, efficiency and strength of any weapon he holds. I don't... A cool concept could have been used better, and for that to be such an overpowered ability, and, you know, eventually he, like, killed Fyodor and then killed himself so that Fyodor couldn't reincarnate. Let's talk about that reincarnation. That was insane to add in there. What happened? I thought the whole thing was if you touch Fyodor, you die. Do we not remember that? I would 1,000,000% remember that. Maybe they'll explain that too. But, what happened to Nikolai? Where's Sigma? All that. They're gone too. What's that one guy with, like, the slick hair, the greasy hair? It's not Muichiro. Who is... Oh, that's from Demon Slayer. He's the green guy with, like, the little ghosts. Yeah. A lot is not explained. The writing is not good. I love it. But there are some major, huge flaws. And I just wanted to talk about it. I love to talk. I'm sure that I went off on, like, 1,000,000 different side plots that I never explained. So I'm sorry about that. But as is having the mind of one who carries too many thoughts. You know what they call me? They call me the thinker. They don't call me that. I made that up. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed. Bye!